So you don't need the...
No, I don't actually. I did not make the chocolate. I did not make it. Hello, ladies. I'm here to talk about a very influential book today. Has anyone ever heard of The Secret?
No.
Yes.
Has anybody ever heard of the Law of Attraction?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all kind of like a 2000, late 90s, 2000 phenomenon. But way back in Depression, there was a book written called Think and Grow Rich. For people very familiar with the areas of personal development, is an absolute classic. It's something that if you read it, you'll want to go back and read it a lot of times. Because the path in life to becoming your most authentic and successful self has certainly to do with personal development. So think and grow rich. It's kind of about universal laws. It's a lot of, I'm going to talk some about the book and then use some illustrations from my life. So moments of this will be personal and moments will be more about the book. Napoleon Hill the author interviewed like 100 different people who were fabulously successful, like Andrew Carnegie and bankers, all the great barons of the time, and Henry Ford, men who accumulated great fortunes. And he found that it wasn't any particular financial, advantage or whatever, that what made them successful was their ability to transmute the energy of thought and to magnetize that thought by attaching great, very strong emotion to it. And by doing that over and over again as a habit, as a practice, to literally magnetize what they desired in life straight to them. So this book is a lot philosophy, and it's kind of like a science of getting what you want. It's like a science of energy. It's manifesting from thought to money. And money isn't the most important thing that we want in life, but it's a great deal about magnetizing all those positive things that you want in life. Let's call it abundance. We want to manifest abundance into our lives. Happy relationships, harmonious finances, and attract the things that are what mean something to us and what we really want. Not necessarily money, but certainly money makes things easier. So money is a tool that we all need to experience some of the things that we want. But it's just one aspect of abundance. So thoughts have Einstein said E equals mc squared. So what he basically said is E is energy and mc squared is matter and speed. So he was basically saying that matter is just like frozen energy. So that's something I realized many years ago in college, that this idea that energy and matter are two different things is a false dichotomy. That when you actually understand that they're the same thing, that's how you start to create that flow in your life of how your energy brings things to you that we consider matter, like money. So our thoughts are a vibration and they resonate and they'll literally magnetize to us whatever we're thinking. If we're thinking negative things, we will magnetize negative things, and if we're thinking positive things, we'll manifest positive things in our lives. So I've been studying personal development for a long, long time, and I had known of this book, and I read about ideas in this book, but I never actually read this book until I bought it for myself this Christmas. So over Christmas, I started reading Think and Grow Rich, and I was really, really glad because I'm actually just kind of getting started on my entrepreneurial journey, and I've been in personal development a long time, and also learning, kind of teaching myself to manifest a long time, but this is like a really wonderful blueprint, and I haven't always been very strong on the part about making plans and being organized, and this book really helps you do that. So because I read this book, I wrote out a plan. So he says what you need to do is you need to write out the exact amount of money that you want to make by a certain date. And you have to put a date on it, and write it down, put it in writing. If you don't plan, you won't visualize those specifics. And if you don't visualize those specifics, you can't attract them to you. You could attract maybe, you would be like, well, I want some money, I'm trying to attract money. You could maybe attract some money, but you're going to, the science of this manifestation and being successful is deciding exactly what your plan is and focusing on it and putting it in writing and going over it over and over again. So you can't just decide, oh, well, okay, I'll be frank. My goal this year is $150,000. I never made more in my life than $35,000 a year. And for the past 4 years, I didn't really make anything because I had the luxury of not having to work. I've been a complete volunteer community activist. But for the last, I'm 41. When my children were born, I was 24 and 25. And since, so almost 20 years, let's say 17 years, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that working for somebody else, to me, was like a losing game that you can only get so far. And especially when my children were very young, I was a single mom, and I knew that I wanted to do something where I could be home. So I was actually, my 20s were kind of like a Jerry Springer train wreck. I was with 2 abusive people, and I had 2 children with 2 abusive people right in a row. It was a terrible disaster, and they both left me very quickly. Both of the girls' fathers were gone by the time the girls were 4 months old. And I was 3,000 miles away from my family, who basically said, you made your bed, now lie in it. They weren't gonna like fly me home and save me or tell me to live at home. And I had 2 very small children. My oldest was 18 months old when my second one was born. So I had 2 children, actually, they were both on the breast at the same time. So I was literally on welfare in California. But I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I started studying network marketing, looking at network marketing companies. I started studying home business, and I started studying marketing. I mean, I didn't have a computer then, so a lot of marketing was still direct mail. And so I'd sign up for all these things and all these offers that kept coming to the house. I was like studying what they were doing. I'm like, what are they selling? What's their business model? What's their business plan? And I would like, to a lot of people, it was just junk mail. But to me, I was studying marketing, and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, even 17 years ago. So time goes by. I finally moved back from California to near where my family is in Lehigh Valley. And I wanted to homeschool my children because I wanted to teach them to be independent thinkers so that they didn't fall into the spell of an abusive people like I did. Because I was taught very much to submit when I was in the world. So I submitted to my husband, no matter how he treated me. So it took me a while to deprogram myself from the situations that I had been in, because I was very much brainwashed. So I knew I wanted to homeschool my children because I wanted them to question authority, most of all me, and I knew I would pay for that, and I have. But I'm glad. It's the most valuable lesson I've taught them. They totally understand like systems of conformity for what they are, and they strive very much to be true to their individual selves at a young age. So I have very conscious, dignified young ladies who have a great deal of self-respect for themselves at 15 and 17, who are very much their own people, even as much as you're kind of like a little lost when you're a teenager because you're trying to figure a lot of things out, but they know who they are a lot more than some young people who have their nose in video games and stuff. So what I was doing to support myself at the time, I actually had a full 4-year full tuition scholarship to a private university. I was like one of the smartest kids in class in high school. My SATs were like off the charts. I was a straight A student. I should have been maybe like on the path to success, but I got derailed in my personal life. So what I ended up doing was being a server at a country club, nights and weekends. Mind you, the most professional, absolutely amazing, best at sales server that there was at the country club. And I did that in order so that I could homeschool my children during the days, and I worked nights and weekends. So I made a lot of sacrifices. I was also in a few rock bands to make some money on the side, because my original thing was to be a musician. Then I graduated with a philosophy degree. Then I was a waitress, but I knew all these years that I could do so much more than that. So the first year that I waitressed, I made $27,000. And in 5 years, I raised my income to $35,000, which isn't a ton of money, but it's a lot for like a short period of time to raise your income. So I was doing the best I could, but I never lost that dream of wanting to be an entrepreneur. So all this time, even while I was working, homeschooling, being mom, dad, chief, cook and bottle washer, and singing in band, and thinking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll 24/7, I was actually still studying marketing and business, and I never gave up that idea. I launched a bunch of little home businesses, and I had an idea to, like, you know, resell discount goods, and I was trying to do this, and I was trying to do that, and I fell prey to a couple scams, actually. And then I was studying real estate, you know, in the height of the boom before everything crashed, and I spent thousands of dollars, and everything I tried failed, but I never gave up my dream. So you can't manifest until you start to visualize. Has anyone heard of Jack Canfield and his series, very famous and wildly successful, has made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, Chicken Soup for the Soul? Right. So Jack Canfield tells a very famous story about how he wanted to increase his income, and he set a very specific goal, and he visualized it. He said he literally like made a giant replica of a check, and he wrote, I think he wrote $1 million on it, and he like taped it over his bed and the ceiling. So that would be the last thing he saw when he went to bed at night, and the first thing he saw when he woke up in the morning. So when he finally got a book deal, like, he got written a check for $1 million, right? So the first thing that you need is desire. So let's just say, I probably spent a little too much time talking about my personal life, but I always had the desire. I always knew I wanted to be in business for myself. I wanted to be home with my kids. I wanted to do something from home. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never lost that through all the struggles that I went through, and they were pretty ugly sometimes. So you have to have that desire. So the next step is faith. Back to the book. Faith is you have to believe. You need to use your imagination. Achieving your desires is not about sacrifice. It's just about being absolutely committed to what you've envisioned, the plan, the number, and the date, and what you've written down. And Napoleon Hill says, read it every morning, your plan, you know, and your goal, and read it every night. And you know, I've also read that it takes 30 days to develop a habit, you know, so if you would do that every day for 30 days, that is when you start to move into what they call auto-suggestion, that basically if you attach a ton of emotion to those plans, those numbers, that vision, that's when you're literally going to magnetize. The universe is going to, like, have you ever had a great day where you're like in the flow, like you hit every green light, or like you just had a wonderful serendipity and the timing was just perfect, like a couple things in a row, like you just feel in the flow. I mean, some days I just feel like the universe is just boom, boom, like the doors are just flying open for me, you know, like your whole life. This book teaches you how your whole life can be like that. If you make a plan and you magnetize it with your emotions and you go through these other steps. So it's kind of a universal law. This is actually how the universe works. You always get what you magnetize in your subconscious mind. But the trick is to align your conscious mind with your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind fears change, sometimes fears success, sometimes fears the change of getting what you want, what that change will bring. And a lot of times, the vision that you have and the change that you need to move through to get to it, it can really shake up your life. Sometimes you'll lose friends. Sometimes you'll lose relationships. So it's up to you if you want to stay in patterns that will keep you from manifesting your desire, or if you're willing to grow, and sometimes you outgrow the people around you. Actually, he says that you're the sum of the 10 people that you spend the most time with. So if those people are positive, if they're life-affirming, if they're manifesting their own success, if they have their own vision and plans and are following it, that will certainly help you. So a lot of people struggle with negative people around them, and it's something that you have to decide. You know, if a lot of people, they would like to be successful, but as they magnetize and start to follow their path, they find that, you know, they're losing people in their lives, and that's something you have to come to terms with. If people aren't growing with you, you will grow away from them. So that can bring very serious issues that you have to consider. But it's definitely a universal law. It's just like prayer. Prayer is not necessarily, I don't want to offend anybody here, I don't believe in like an anthropomorphic God, like there's some like guy out there, you know, I believe in the universal mind. Let's call it the higher mind. It's like we all have a consciousness, and we all have a spiritual nature that's very much alive, and we're all, the universe, every part contains the whole, everything's connected. It's like a holographic film. If you have a holographic film of an apple and you cut a little square off, that holographic film, that little square will actually contain the whole apple. So literally, if you can tap into the universal mind, all of the energy and all of the wisdom and the consciousness in the universe, you actually have access to. So a lot of things like telepathy or kind of psychic type abilities that people think is like heebie-jeebie, it's really not. It's just, it's universal law. And if you can like step back and see that on a big enough screen, it all starts to make sense because everything's energy and everything's connected. So the major positive emotions are faith, love, and sex. The intensity of those positive things can connect to our subconscious minds, and so we have a response from this infinite intelligence or this higher mind. And that's the macrocosm, and we're the microcosm. I mean, we're all like embodiments of this kind of transcendent consciousness, and it's all around us too. So we're the small part, and we're like a reflection of the big part of the higher mind. That's what this book is saying, whether you agree or not, whether you believe it or not, is it's very much kind of a metaphysical, spiritual manifesto. It says the way that we get what we want is to understand that everything is spiritual and everything is energy, and that's how we can attract things to us by attaching very, very strong emotions to our desires and then setting very firm plans to get those. So the way that you voluntarily develop faith is to repeat and affirm your plans to your subconscious mind. So every morning you read your plan. This year I'm going to make $150,000 by offering the very highest quality online marketing services to make local business owners wildly successful so that their return on investment of what they're paying me is much greater than, you always want to over-deliver. So, you know, that's my, you can't just say, I want X amount of money. You have to say, what do I have to offer people? What value am I going to bring? What value am I going to over-deliver to people that is going to magnetize that value to you? So I struggled with negativity. You know, after years of abuse, it took me a while to recover myself and just decide who I was and what I liked, because I was so used to being told those things. And so actually the process of discovering who I was in my 30s was a very lovely, beautiful time, because I realized that I really loved who Julie was when I found out who she was, and I felt very happy. And I started to be a very happy, outgoing person because I was very introverted while I was growing up, and I had no self-esteem. I was bullied mercilessly from the time I was 6 to the time I was 16, and finally stopped being in the bus stop, and like our neighbors gave us like $100 car because they couldn't bear to like, you know, get rid of it or whatever. So, and then I got to drive and I didn't have to be at the bus stop anymore. So that was how I finally escaped bullying. But my dad was always trying to coach me. He's like, Julie, when they say this, you have to tell them that. And he'd give me some snappy comeback or whatever. But I didn't have like I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have, you know, the personality inside me. I didn't have that security inside me. So I feel very peaceful with all the things I went through, because The abuse that I had to go through was what helped me emerge on the other side, like a very confident, personable, like radiant, positive woman. And luckily, the smiling angel faces of my children when I woke every morning never allowed me to lapse into depression. I was always very grateful, and I saw them. I was like, wow, I don't have the luxury to be depressed. I just gotta do what I have to do because these lovely children are depending on me, even if I'm all by myself. So faith is actually the antidote for failure. And thought will manifest, the spiritual energy thought will manifest the matter that you want to bring to you. So you want to align your conscious and subconscious minds, and the way you do that is visualization is so, so important. I've listened to a lot of, did anybody ever listen to a teleconference or a webinar on personal development? Have these inspirational people talking, the one thing that always got me is they say, in order to be where you want to be, you have to hold space inside yourself to feel what it would be like to be that already. So, the one gentleman was talking about a person that he coached or counseled who was totally broke, his relationships were messed up, and he just got him to understand the idea that if he could, and he's like, well, how do you think a billionaire feels? Just imagine that for a minute, ladies. Imagine we're billionaires. You've got more cash than you could ever possibly know what to do with. If you wanted to drive to the airport right now and fly to Fiji, you could do it. Stay in the nicest resort. Bring your family, bring your honey, get away, send your kids to some luxury place, or do the thing with the whole family. If you can hold that feeling inside of you of whatever it is, and that may not be your dream, it may not be lifestyle, it may be, whatever your personal vision of happiness is. If you can hold that feeling inside of you of having it already, that is when you start to align your subconscious mind and your conscious mind to bring that into your life. And about, I'm going to confess one more thing. As I was working at the country club, things were rough. It was 2008, the end of 2007, and gas was up to $4 something, and I was just squeezed so tightly. I could just barely pay my bills the way it was, and something happened to my car. And in my 30s, I had about 5 cars, and they were all $1,000, and it was just a 10-year-old beater. Luckily, they were in beautiful condition when I got them, but I either wrecked them, or they blew the head gasket, or they died, or whatever. And I lost my car. I didn't know where my next money was coming from. I was absolutely desperate. And I couldn't pay my rent. I was waiting for my tax return, and it was 2 weeks. It was the first time I had to tell my landlord that I couldn't pay my rent. And the prices of everything was just so high. The pennies that I had stretched to float myself so far, they absolutely were not enough anymore. And so I taught myself to manifest. I'm a little embarrassed. I didn't actually teach myself to manifest through my own skills. I decided to magnetize a provider between me and you guys. So what I did is I held space inside me, and I said, I've been doing this by myself so long, I can't do it anymore. There's got to be somebody, of all the women in this world, that have somebody to help them, or take care of them, or provide for them, or they're married, or they have a partner. I really, really need help, and I cannot do this anymore. And so I took all my bills, and I just set them in a pile, and I just breathed, and I created this space inside myself. And I said, I don't need to know how they're getting paid, and I don't have to pay them. I know that they are paid already because somebody is on his way to help me. And I just held that space. And I really felt it in all my body, in every cell of my body, and I really believed it for 2 months. And then I met a wonderful person who was somewhat older than me, and he wanted to have a relationship with me and provide for me and my children. And we had a very happy relationship for 4 years. So that is how I had the luxury to become a volunteer, community advocate, and activist. So here I am, all of a sudden I don't have to worry about money anymore. I got a fat wad to carry around every week. And I started to like feel that like abundance, and I was like, wow, you know, I totally manifested this abundance into my life. But at the time I didn't believe that I could get that myself. I had to manifest someone who would give that to me. And so, you know, here I am, I'm like 38, I'm 39, you know, I know I'm like a smart, capable woman, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I got saved from my life of, you know, slaving away at the country club, because I was at it, you know, and I was like, I know I could do something more, but I'm 38 years old and I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I ended up seeing a movie, a documentary, that got me concerned with a certain issue, and overnight my life crystallized, and I realized that I just wanted to pour myself into this cause of advocating for people who were living without clean water because of a certain industrial process called fracking. So I spent 2.5 years like spending all my energy on that, running to affected communities, meeting people, lobbying my legislators and regulatory agencies. I got involved with several community organizations, and I like basically bootstrapped myself a whole new set of skills. Like all of a sudden, like I'm a community organizer, you know, I do this, I do that, I public speak, and I write stuff, you know, and I talk to the press, and I do this and that, and interact with the community. I got all these organizing skills, and that's when I realized the power of Facebook to like make people sign petitions and phone calls and show up to events and do this and that and write letters, and I had a large and growing network, and people were very magnetized to me across Facebook because I present what I call my authentic polarizing self. And what that means is I'm not trying to present some sanitized version of myself that will be palatable to everybody. I'm absolutely authentic. I live from my heart. I do what matters to me. I follow my path. And I try not to offend people, but if they don't like the way I am, they can like take a hike, and the people who really love me are my raving fans. I mean, as far as being active in the movement I'm in, you know, I get a lot of feedback, and I don't do it because people give me positive feedback. I do it because I can barely sleep at night thinking of families like yours or like yours who are struggling living without water because they've been damaged by a process, and nobody in the government or the people who are responsible for doing that has stepped up to rectify the problem, and these people are really suffering. So it's that kind of feeling of not being able to sleep at night, worrying about why a 2-year-old has rashes from head to toe because she was bathing in contaminated water, and her mother has to put her in a wagon and walk 3 miles to a neighbor's house to bathe her kids so that she's not covered in rashes from head to toe because their dog died from drinking that contaminated water. So that's what drives me. But along the way of doing that, you know, I get people sending me messages and hugging me and kissing me and saying, Julie, you know, you're a hero, Julie, you're this. I'm not a hero, I'm like I'm part of a large group of people who care and who are doing something, but like I've really magnetized like a large network that respects me and considers me a leader, and it's not because I'm trying. I'm kind of like a natural born cheerleader and advocate. So like when I do something within the movement, I communicate to people like what I'm doing so that they know that if they're stuck at a job or caring for an ailing parent or can't get away because they got 4 kids and 10 places to run them around in one day, that even when they want to do something and their hands are tied, that even if they can't do it, they know somebody's representing for them. So that's kind of the way I like play cheerleader, is so that other people know that when they can't do something, that, you know, I felt, wow, I have this freedom, I have this time, my children are like older, they're in their teenage years, you know, they can fend for themselves here and there, they can come with me, and I feel, well, I have this time freedom, and I have, you know, frankly, the resources. I said, I absolutely have a sacred duty to be advocating for people who can't advocate for themselves. So I knew I was on this path, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm like, but I know I'm doing the right thing because my heart is alive, like every cell of my body is alive, and I'm following my path. I'm like, I know if I follow this path, I'm building this network, the universe will help me figure out what to do. I don't know what it is. I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know quite what it is. So then I got this idea about social media because Facebook was such a great medium for me. And so it was a year ago, and I thought to myself, okay, I did a little market research, and And I needed to get back into earning income for sure in a very serious way. I knew that last year I had to make that transition to earning income. And quite frankly, it's not really cheap to raise my family. To, you know, instead of, we live in a 3-bedroom home, not like huge or totally extravagant, you know, but it's not like we're in a little 2-bedroom apartment or something, you know. And you know, my daughter's driving, you know, my children are young women, they have certain needs. We're not like totally extravagant or whatever, but and frankly, I have a lot of debt. So because I didn't get any child support from either of the girls' fathers. Never, 0, zip, 17 years, no child support. So frankly, I have a lot of debt. So life is not cheap. If I don't make a lot of money, I knew that I wasn't gonna make it. I knew that I didn't have the option to just like go a mile down the street to the restaurant district and just start waiting tables again and make $35,000. That was not gonna cut it. We can't live on $35,000. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I have a lot of debt. I cannot pay my obligations with that amount of money. I said, I need to do something dramatic that is going to get me dramatically more money. And so I was thinking about the social media thing, and then I was like, but that makes me like a fulfillment person. That makes me a key puncher. Maybe I don't really want to sit around and do business Facebook pages all day. I want to be a business owner. So I got a larger vision, and I was still studying marketing. I actually this whole time, like still since 2007, very intensely, since I had some help and I was being supported. I was studying internet marketing very, very hard, and but I got burned out on one project because I couldn't build a website. So the next lesson is you always have to play to your strengths. And that's part of the next thing is you have to get your mastermind group. You need specialized skills that you don't always have to know everything yourself. Like in the role I am now as a consultant, I get other people to do all these techie things for me. And my strength is I have the vision. I can sit down with a business owner and I evaluate all their online marketing, and out of all the different aspects that we could tweak, like I can see which places they need this, they need that, to actually achieve a certain goal. So I do custom solutions for every business. But then I get other people to help me fulfill that, because if I was busy doing the fulfillment, I would be working in my business and not on my business, because I wanted to be a business owner, because that's what being an entrepreneur is. So if I was doing people's Facebook pages, I wouldn't be a business owner. So let me see. So you have to follow your path, and you have to trust your heart. That is for sure. It's good habits that are going to magnetize the things that you want to you. And you definitely have to use your imagination. There's a synthetic imagination, which like combines things, and then there's totally creative imagination, where your mind gets to such like a high vibratory state that you actually kind of have access to that universal mind, and that's where your like hunches and your clues come from. And the thing you want to concentrate on is visualizing the end and trusting the process, because your subconscious mind is actually the best supercomputer, magical spiritual supercomputer on the planet. It will actually provide the means for you. If you're fretting over the means and you're in struggle, then you'll be actually repelling the abundance that you should be attracting. So focus on your vision and raise your energy level through any of those positive things, love, sex, faith, and your subconscious mind will actually provide you with the means to get that. How am I for time? I wasn't paying attention.
It's okay.
Okay, all right. I'm going to try to get through the rest of this.
5 more minutes.
Okay, great. I'll wrap it up then. So one of the things that helped me... I thought she said, you're all right, you have 1 minute. Oh, 5, that's good. 5. That's good. So what's helped me succeed being an entrepreneur this time around is all the other things I did, I never got coach or the mastermind group. And so what I actually did this time around, I thought that I had invested just about all the money that I could possibly put into launching this business. And then I get this call, and it was offering me a coaching program. And I had always read that the final linchpin to being successful is often to get a coach. And I thought, gosh, maybe that's why I failed every single time. I never had that mastermind group to refer to, the people with complementary sets of skills with whom I can harmonize. I never had that coach. And so I said, if I don't invest in myself, if I don't believe in myself, I'm not going to get this. And I spent an insane amount of money on a credit card to, not that I recommend this to everybody, but this was my path and I had to do it. I knew that if I didn't invest in myself, and if I didn't get a coach, and if I didn't get a mastermind group, that I wasn't going to make it. And it's actually been the only thing that has gotten me through this, because before I just kind of, I wanted to be a consultant, but I wasn't actually a consultant. So when I got my coach and I got my mastermind group, I went to a conference and I sat with my mastermind group for real, and they taught me an amazing skill set that has given me the confidence. And actually, I literally just